The monotonous beeping of monitoring equipment was the only sound that broke the silence of the night shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station. Located at the edge of human-controlled space, the station served as the eyes and ears of the Human Alliance, constantly scanning the vast darkness for signs of potential threats or distress calls. Communications Officer Vera Kwan stifled a yawn as she ran routine diagnostics on the communication arrays. 3 months into her 6-month rotation, she had grown accustomed to the predictable rhythm of the night shift. Nothing exciting ever happened during these hours. Until tonight, a soft ping caught her attention, followed by a flickering light on her console. Frowning, she adjusted her headset and leaned forward. The signal was weak, almost imperceptible against the background noise of space. "Computer, isolate and amplify incoming transmission," she commanded. The signal strengthened slightly, revealing a fragmented message transmitted on an unfamiliar frequency. Vera's fingers flew across the touchscreen as she worked to decrypt the alien signal. After several tense minutes, fragments of a message began to materialize on her screen. "We, under attack. Energy drained. They call themselves Black Maw." The transmission cut off abruptly. Vera attempted to re-establish contact, but encountered only static. Her heart pounded as she reviewed the origin coordinates. The signal had come from the Zathora system, home to a peaceful species that rarely interacted with humans or other galactic races. "Control, this is Communications Officer Kwan. I've intercepted an SOS transmission from the Zathora system, requesting immediate escalation to command." Within hours, the situation had been escalated to the highest levels of the United Earth Defense Force. At UEDF headquarters, a group of high-ranking officers gathered in the war room, their faces grave as they reviewed the limited information available. "The transmission is authentic," confirmed Admiral Jansen, the fleet commander. "The Zathora are a peaceful species with minimal military capabilities. If they're under attack, they won't stand a chance without intervention. We know very little about this Black Maw threat," countered General Rivera. "Committing our forces based on a fragmented distress call seems reckless." Captain Arya Donovan, commanding officer of the UES Aegis, stepped forward. "With all due respect, General, we can't ignore a direct call for help. The Zathora may not be our closest allies, but they're part of the galactic community. If we turn our backs now, what message does that send to other species?" Admiral Jansen nodded thoughtfully. "Captain Donovan has a point. Besides, humanity has a unique position in the galactic community. Many species view us as Deathworlders due to Earth's harsh environment, but that very resilience has allowed us to assist other species during crises in the past. I volunteer the Aegis and her crew for this mission," Arya said firmly. "We can assemble a response fleet and reach the Zathora system within 10 days. After further deliberation, the decision was made. Captain Donovan would lead a small but formidable fleet to investigate the distress call and render aid to the Zathora if needed. As Arya left the war room, she was joined by Dr. Camille Nguyen, the Chief Medical and Biological Research Officer assigned to the mission. "I've been analyzing the transmission fragments," Camilla said, falling into step beside Arya. "The mention of energy draining is concerning. If this Black Maw has technology that can neutralize energy weapons, we might be walking into a fight where much of our advanced weaponry is useless." Arya frowned. "Good point. I'll speak with Colonel Pierce about focusing on ballistic weapons for this mission. We've learned from past encounters that sometimes older technology can be our saving grace." In the armory of the UES Aegis, Colonel Hector Pierce was already preparing his Space Marines for the upcoming mission. The veteran commander had served alongside Captain Donovan on previous campaigns and shared her commitment to protecting allied species. Railguns, projectile weapons, and physical combat gear, he instructed his quartermaster. "If these Black Maw creatures can drain energy, I want weapons that don't rely on it." As the preparations continued, Arya found herself standing at the observation deck, gazing at the stars. The decision to deploy had been quick, perhaps too quick. Was she leading her crew into an unknown danger without sufficient intelligence? Yet the alternative, ignoring a desperate plea for help, was unthinkable. Dr. Camila Nguyen joined her at the viewport. Having second thoughts, Captain? Not about going, Arya replied. About whether we can be effective against an enemy we know nothing about. That's why they call us Deathworlders, Camila said with a slight smile. We're adaptable. It's what Earth taught us after centuries of survival against all odds. As the Deathworld Response Fleet prepared to depart Earth's orbit, Captain Donovan addressed her crew from the bridge of the USS Aegis. We embark on this mission in response to a call for help, she announced, her voice steady and confident. And a Deathworlder never abandons those in need. Whatever awaits us in the Zathora system, we will face it with courage, determination, and the unbreakable spirit that has defined humanity throughout our history. The engines of the USS Aegis hummed to life, and the Deathworld Response Fleet began its journey into the unknown depths of space. The journey through FTL space was a surreal experience, no matter how many times one had experienced it. For 10 days, the fleet traveled through the shimmering corridor of altered physics. The stars outside stretched into unrecognizable streaks of light. Life aboard the USS Aegis settled into a rhythm of preparation and training. In the main mess hall, off-duty crew members gathered to share meals and stories, building the camaraderie that would be essential in the coming conflict. Colonel Hector Pierce sat with a group of his Space Marines, watching as they disassembled and cleaned their weapons with practiced efficiency. Think the ballistic weapons will really be enough, Colonel? Asked Lieutenant Rodriguez, inspecting the chamber of her railgun. They've served us well before, Pierce replied, taking a sip of his coffee. During the Nexus campaign, we faced enemies who could short-circuit energy weapons. The old-fashioned bullets and blades got us through. Across the mess hall, Dr. Camila Nguyen was engaged in an animated discussion with the weapons engineering team. Human body temperature runs higher than most species in the galaxy, she explained, gesturing to a diagram on her tablet. If these black maw creatures are draining energy, we might be able to use our natural heat signature as an advantage. Or, at the very least, develop armor that retains our body heat to prevent it from being siphoned away. We could modify the thermal regulation systems in the combat suits, suggested Chief Engineer Malik. Create a closed system that redirects body heat back into the suit's power cells instead of dispersing it. In another part of the ship, Communications Officer Vera Kwan was working tirelessly to establish contact with anyone from the Zathora species. She had sent messages on all frequencies used by the Galactic Council, but received only silence in return. Still nothing? Captain Donovan asked, entering the communications hub. Vera shook her head. Complete silence. Either their communication systems have been destroyed, or there's no one left to respond. Arya finished grimly. Keep trying. We need any information we can get before we arrive. During a rare moment of downtime, a group of younger officers gathered in the recreation area, discussing Earth's history and their place in the galaxy. My grandmother survived the Great Climate Collapse, shared Ensign Taylor. She said those years taught humanity more about resilience than any other period in our history. When the food shortages hit, people adapted. They developed technologies to grow crops in previously inhospitable environments. And then the nuclear conflict nearly wiped us out, added Lieutenant Catry. Yet somehow we survived that too, rebuilt from the ashes. No wonder other species call us Deathworlders, remarked a young engineer. Earth tried to kill us countless times, and we refused to die. Some alien races look at us like we're monsters, Lieutenant Rodriguez commented. But when trouble comes knocking, suddenly our Deathworlder traits become valuable. Not everyone share their confidence. During a tactical meeting, Lieutenant Commander Walsh voiced his concerns to Colonel Pierce. We're heading into a situation with minimal intelligence about the enemy's capabilities, he argued. We could be flying straight into a massacre. Pierce regarded him steadily. Your concerns are noted, Commander. But remember, we've trained in the harshest environments Earth has to offer, from the sandstorm deserts to the frozen poles. Whatever awaits us, we've prepared for worse. On the 8th day of their journey, Communications Officer Kwan picked up a faint signal from an abandoned satellite at the edge of the Zathora system. The broken message painted a grim picture. The Zathora civilization was on the brink of collapse. The Black Maw used energy siphon fields and paralytic weapons to subdue their victims before draining them completely. Most importantly, the message confirmed Dr. Nguyen's theory. Energy weapons were ineffective against the Black Maw. Only ballistic weapons or physical combat could damage them. We were right to prepare as we did, Arya told her command staff. Colonel Pierce, make sure your Marines are ready for close-quarters combat. Dr. Nguyen, continue working on those thermal protective measures. And Vera, keep scanning for any additional information. As they approached the outer edge of the Zathora system, the fleet's sensors detected an anomalous energy field surrounding the main planet. It pulsed with an eerie, consuming darkness that seemed to devour light itself. All hands to battle stations, Captain Donovan ordered, her voice calm despite the tension gripping the bridge. We're about to meet this Black Maw. The Deathworld response fleet entered the Zathora system with caution, deploying scout ships to gather intelligence while the main vessels maintained a defensive formation. The scouts' reports were grim. Cities in ruins, power stations disabled, and the once vibrant planet now dim as if the very life had been drained from it. Captain, we're detecting a weak distress signal from the surface, Veraquan announced. A small group of Zathora survivors are sheltered in an underground bunker near what appears to be their capital city. Coordinates confirmed, said the tactical officer. But we're also detecting multiple Black Maw patrols in the area. Arya turned to Colonel Pierce. Assemble your rescue team. Get those survivors out and gather whatever intelligence you can about these creatures. Yes, Captain, Pierce replied with a nod. We'll be ready to deploy in 20 minutes. The dropship descended through Zathora's atmosphere, the planet's surface coming into view through the viewport. What had once been a thriving civilization now lay in ruins. Buildings crumbled, vegetation withered, and an unnatural darkness hung over everything like a shroud. Colonel Pierce led his Space Marines through the ruins, advancing cautiously toward the coordinates of the distress signal. Each soldier carried ballistic weapons, railguns, projectile rifles, and traditional bladed weapons for close combat. Movement ahead, whispered Lieutenant Rodriguez through the comm. 3 figures, moving in a search pattern. For the first time, the humans laid eyes on their enemy. The Black Maw stood nearly 7 feet tall, with dark, almost light-absorbing skin. Their bodies were adorned with strange devices that seemed to pulse with stolen energy. The air around them was noticeably colder, creating small clouds of condensation with each breath they took. Hold position, Pierce ordered. On my mark, fire. The Marines opened fire, their railguns sending hyper-accelerated projectiles toward the Black Maw patrol. The creatures reacted with surprising speed, activating defensive shields that seemed to absorb some of the incoming fire. But the physical nature of the projectiles couldn't be completely negated, and 2 of the 3 creatures fell. The third Black Maw charged toward the Marine position, emitting a pulse of cold energy. The Marines in its path felt their extremities beginning to numb, their movements slowing. But unlike the Zathora, whose biology made them especially vulnerable to cold, the humans could withstand the temperature drop long enough to continue fighting. Pierce drew his combat knife and met the creature head-on. The Black Maw's touch was like ice, draining warmth and energy wherever it made contact. Despite the pain, Pierce drove his knife into a gap in the creature's armor, striking a vital point. The Black Maw collapsed, its energy-draining devices flickering and dying. Area secure, Pierce announced, fighting to control his shivering. Let's find those survivors. The bunker entrance was hidden beneath the rubble of what had once been a government building. After clearing the debris, the rescue team descended into the darkness, where they found approximately 30 Zathora survivors huddled in the cold. The Zathora were slender beings with iridescent skin that normally glowed with inner light. Now, however, they appeared dim and weakened. Their once vibrant coloration faded to a dull gray. One of them stepped forward, introducing himself as Velron, a senior scientist who had studied the Black Maw since their first appearance. You came, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. We feared no one would hear our call. The Human Alliance responds to all distress signals, Pierce assured him. We're here to evacuate you to safety. As the Marines prepared the survivors for evacuation, Dr. Camille Nguyen spoke with Velron, gathering crucial information about the enemy they faced. The Black Maw don't simply drain thermal or electrical energy, Ron explained, showing Camila his research data. They extract life force directly from living beings, causing gradual deterioration and eventual death. My people are particularly vulnerable due to our energy-based biology. And their weakness? Camila asked urgently. Physical damage can harm them, as your weapons demonstrated, Ron replied. But I've been working on something else, a specific frequency of light that disrupts their energy siphoning capabilities. The evacuation was underway when another Black Maw patrol discovered their position. The Marines formed a defensive perimeter, protecting the weakened Zathura as they made their way to the dropship. The firefight was intense but brief. The human soldiers' resistance to the cold-based paralytic effects gave them an advantage, allowing them to maintain mobility and accuracy while the Black Maw struggled to compensate for their unexpected resilience. Yet the victory came at a cost. Several Marines sustained severe injuries from direct contact with the Black Maw's energy-draining devices. Their life signs weakened rapidly, the energy being siphoned from their bodies faster than their natural resilience could counter. Get them in the dropship now, Pierce ordered, helping a wounded soldier to his feet. We need to get them back to the Aegis for treatment. As the dropship ascended toward the fleet, Pierce contacted Captain Donovan. Mission accomplished, Captain. We've secured 28 survivors and eliminated 2 Black Maw patrols. But we have casualties. These things are deadly at close range, even to us. Understood, Colonel, Arya replied. Dr. Nguyen will meet you in the hangar bay. Prepare for immediate debriefing once the wounded are stable. In the medical bay of the UES Aegis, Dr. Camille Nguyen worked feverishly to stabilize the injured Marines. The nature of their injuries was unlike anything she had encountered before. It wasn't just physical damage, but a kind of energy depletion that affected their cellular functions. Their metabolism is crashing, she told Captain Donovan, who had come to check on the wounded. It's as if something is preventing their bodies from processing energy efficiently. Can you reverse it? Arya asked, looking at the pale faces of her crew. I'm working on it, Camila replied. The data from Velron is helping. These creatures leave behind a kind of residue that continues to disrupt energy pathways in the body. If we can neutralize that. Meanwhile, in the Strategic Command Center, Velron addressed the assembled officers, explaining what his people had learned about the Black Maw. They appeared without warning 3 months ago, he said, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. At first, they targeted our power plants and energy reserves. Then they began attacking our people directly. What is their ultimate goal? Asked Communications Officer Kwan. They are collectors of energy, Ron explained. Not just for consumption, but for expansion. They convert the energy they drain into more of their kind. Each world they conquer becomes a breeding ground for more Black Maw. And the outpost we discovered on the moon? Colonel Pierce asked. Their central hub, Ron confirmed. It houses the main energy siphon field generator that's affecting the entire planet. As long as it remains operational, no energy-based technology can function properly within the system. Then that's our primary target, Captain Donovan decided. We need to disable that generator before the Black Maw bring in reinforcements. Before the meeting concluded, Velron delivered a final warning. What you've encountered so far is merely their advance force. Their main fleet is undoubtedly on its way. We must act quickly. As the command staff dispersed to prepare for the coming battle, Arya stayed behind, studying the tactical display with a troubled expression. The odds were not in their favor, yet retreat was not an option. Somewhere out there, a Black Maw fleet was approaching, threatening not just the Zathura, but potentially all civilizations in this sector of space. We will not fail, she whispered to herself, a promise to the crew that depended on her leadership. Deathworlders don't know how to quit. Based on the intelligence provided by Velron, the fleet identified the central Black Maw base on Zathora's second moon. Orbital scans revealed a massive structure housing the energy siphon field generator that had been slowly draining the planet's resources and life force. "We need to take out that generator," Captain Donovan told her command staff. "Once it's disabled, the Black Maw will lose their advantage, and we can protect the planet from their main fleet when it arrives." "A direct assault would be detected immediately," Colonel Pierce pointed out. "We need a small team to infiltrate the facility and plant explosives at key points." "I'll lead the special operations team," Pierce volunteered. "We've already faced these creatures on the ground. We know what to expect now." Dr. Camille Nguyen had been working with Velron to develop countermeasures against the Black Maw's energy-draining capabilities. She presented her findings to the assembled officers. "We've created a temporary solution," she explained, displaying a modified combat suit. "These suits incorporate a closed thermal system that redirects body heat back into the wearer, rather than allowing it to dissipate. It won't prevent energy drain completely, but it should delay the effects long enough for you to complete your mission." Captain Donovan divided her forces into two groups. An assault team led by Colonel Pierce would infiltrate the moon base and destroy the generator, while the defensive group under her command would remain in orbit to protect the UES Aegis and the rest of the fleet when the Black Maw reinforcements arrived. "This is a high-risk operation," she acknowledged, "but the stakes couldn't be higher. If we don't stop the Black Maw here, they could spread throughout the galaxy, threatening every inhabited world, including Earth." The infiltration team departed in a stealth shuttle, its systems modified to minimize energy emissions that might be detected by the Black Maw. As they approached the moon's surface, the true scale of the enemy base became apparent, a sprawling complex of dark, angular structures that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Colonel Pierce led his team through a maintenance access point identified in Velron's data. The interior of the base was eerily cold, with minimal lighting that created long shadows in the corridors. The air itself felt heavy, as if charged with stolen energy. "Temperature's dropping," whispered Lieutenant Rodriguez. Activating thermal recirculation, the Special Ops team moved silently through the facility, encountering occasional Black Maw guards. Their modified combat suits provided some protection against the energy-draining effects. But even with the enhancements, prolonged exposure to the Black Maw was dangerous. As they ventured deeper into the complex, they began to notice a change in the Black Maw's behavior. The creatures seemed to move with a strange synchronicity, as if guided by a single mind. "It's like they're communicating," Pierce observed after they neutralized another patrol. "But not with any technology one can detect." "Velron mentioned something about this," replied Specialist Chun, the team's technical expert. "He theorized they might have a hive mind of sorts, directed by a central intelligence." The team reached the central reactor chamber, where the massive energy siphon generator pulsed with stolen life force. The plan was simple: plant explosive charges at key structural points, then retreat before detonation. As they began placing the charges, an alarm sounded throughout the facility. The Black Maw had discovered their presence. "Work faster," Pierce ordered, positioning a charge near a power conduit. "We're running out of time." Before they could complete their task, the chamber doors slid open, revealing a Black Maw unlike any they had encountered before. Taller and more imposing than its fellows, its body adorned with complex energy-collecting devices, the creature radiated cold authority. "That must be the Overseer," said Lieutenant Rodriguez, raising her weapon. The Overseer emitted a pulse of energy that swept through the chamber, targeting the human intruders. Unlike the standard Black Maw paralytic field, this attack directly drained life force, causing immediate weakness and disorientation. Colonel Pierce felt the energy being pulled from his body, his strength fading rapidly. Around him, his team members struggled to stay on their feet, their modified suits offering minimal protection against this direct assault. "Complete the mission," Pierce gasped, fighting to remain conscious as he placed his final charge. "Detonate. On my mark." The Overseer advanced, focusing its draining power on Pierce. The colonel collapsed to his knees, his vision darkening as his life force was systematically extracted. His team members fired their weapons, trying to distract the creature, but the Overseer's protective field absorbed most of the impact. In the command center of the U.S. Aegis, Dr. Camila Nguyen monitored the life signs of the infiltration team with growing alarm. "They're in trouble," she told Captain Donovan. "Pierce's vitals are crashing. The Overseer must be there." Camila had been analyzing the remaining data from Velron's research, searching for a weakness they could exploit. A theory had been forming in her mind, based on the Zathora scientists' observations about light frequencies that disrupted Black Maw functions. "I need to send them a transmission," she said urgently. "There's a specific light frequency that might disable the Overseer temporarily." On the moon base, the situation was growing desperate. Several team members had already lost consciousness, and Colonel Pierce was barely hanging on. The detonator for the charges lay in his hand, but he lacked the strength to activate it. Then, his comm unit crackled to life. "Pierce, this is Dr. Nguyen. If you can hear me, I'm sending a code to your tactical visor. It will reconfigure your flashlight to emit a strobe at a specific frequency. It should disrupt the Overseer's control. Temporarily, with his remaining strength, Pierce activated his tactical visor and aimed it at the Overseer. A blinding, strobing light erupted from the device, its frequency modulated exactly as Camila had specified. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Overseer recoiled, its energy-draining field faltering as it shielded its sensory organs from the painful light. The creature's connection to the other Black Maw seemed to flicker, causing momentary confusion among the guards. Lieutenant Rodriguez seized the opportunity, firing a concentrated barrage at the Overseer's now vulnerable form. The creature staggered back, its protective field unable to reform while the light continued to disrupt its functions. "Now, Colonel," she shouted, helping Pierce to his feet. "Detonate the charges." With trembling fingers, Pierce pressed the detonator. The charges began their countdown sequence, giving the team precious seconds to retreat. "Everyone out," he ordered, his voice weak but determined. "Back to the extraction point." The team half-carried, half-dragged their injured comrades through the corridors as explosions began to rock the facility. Behind them, the Overseer had recovered enough to pursue, but the damage to its systems slowed its movements. As they reached the extraction point, the final charges detonated, destroying the central generator. The effect was immediate. The oppressive energy field that had blanketed the Zathora system began to collapse, and with it, the Black Maw's advantage. The infiltration team's shuttle lifted off from the moon's surface, just as secondary explosions consumed the Black Maw facility. Colonel Pierce, barely conscious, looked back at their handiwork with grim satisfaction. "Mission accomplished," he whispered before succumbing to exhaustion. On the bridge of the U.S. Aegis, Captain Donovan received the news with relief. "Get them back here immediately. Dr. Nguyen, prepare the medical bay for casualties." But their victory celebration was short-lived. Communications Officer Kwan's voice cut through the moment of triumph. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting multiple ships entering the system. It's the Black Maw main fleet." Aria's expression hardened as she turned to the tactical display. "So the real battle begins now. All hands to combat stations. Prepare to engage." The space around Zathora darkened as the Black Maw fleet emerged from FDL travel. Dozens of ships, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light, spread out in attack formation. Despite the destruction of the energy siphon generator, the sheer number of enemy vessels presented an overwhelming threat. The human fleet, consisting of only a handful of warships, formed a defensive perimeter around the planet, joined by the few Zathran vessels that still functioned. "They outnumber us at least 5-1, reported the tactical officer, his voice tense. Captain Donovan studied the enemy formation, her mind racing to formulate a strategy. Conventional wisdom would suggest a defensive posture, conserving their strength while waiting for reinforcements. But conventional tactics wouldn't work against such overwhelming odds. "We need to take the fight to them," she decided. "They won't expect an immediate offensive." In the medical bay, Colonel Pierce was regaining consciousness, his body still weak from the energy drain he had suffered. Dr. Camila Nguyen monitored his vital signs, relieved to see some improvement. "The fleet?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Preparing for battle," Camila replied. "The Black Maw main force has arrived." Pierce attempted to sit up. "I need to be on the bridge." "You need to rest," Camila countered, gently but firmly pushing him back onto the bed. "Captain Donovan has the situation under control." On the bridge, Arya was briefing her officers on her unorthodox battle plan. "We've retrofitted our ships with cold-resistant shielding and converted as many weapon systems as possible to ballistic delivery," she explained. "The strobe emitters that disrupted the Overseer have been scaled up and mounted on our smaller vessels. They won't take down the entire fleet, but they should create enough confusion for us to target their command ships." Meanwhile, Velron and Dr. Nguyen had reprogrammed the remaining Zathran satellites to broadcast the disruptive light frequency across a wide area, weakening the Black Maw ship's defenses. "This is a high-risk strategy," Arya acknowledged, "but it's our best chance at victory." The battle began with a surprising human offensive. Instead of maintaining a defensive position, the fleet surged forward, targeting the lead Black Maw ships with concentrated fire from their railguns and physical projectile weapons. The space between the opposing fleets filled with debris and explosions as the human ships executed precise attack runs. The strobe emitters proved effective, causing visible disruption to the Black Maw vessels. Coordination. On the U.S. Aegis, Captain Donovan directed the battle with calm determination. "Concentrate fire on their flagship. If we can take out their command structure, the rest of the fleet will be disorganized." But the Black Maw quickly adapted to the humans' tactics. Despite the disruption caused by the strobe emitters, their superior numbers began to tell. Several human ships took heavy damage, and the defensive line started to falter. "Captain," warned the tactical officer, "they're breaking through our perimeter. 3 enemy vessels are heading for the planet's surface." Arya's face paled. If the Black Maw reached the planet, the remaining Zathora population would be at their mercy. The evacuation was still ongoing, with thousands of civilians waiting for transport to safety. She made a split-second decision that would change the course of the battle and possibly end her life. "All power to forward shields and engines," she ordered. "Set a collision course for the lead Black Maw vessel." Her officers stared at her in shock. "Captain, that's suicide," protested Commander Ramirez. "It's a calculated risk," Arya replied calmly. "If we can destroy their flagship, it might buy enough time for our remaining ships to regroup and protect the evacuation." As the U.S. Aegis surged toward the massive Black Maw command ship, Arya recorded a final message for her crew. "This is Captain Donovan. I want you all to know that it has been the greatest honor of my life to serve with you. What we do today will save countless lives and prove that humanity's strength lies not in our technology, but in our unyielding spirit. Colonel Pierce, if you're hearing this, the command is yours now. Finish what we started." In the medical bay, Pierce struggled to his feet as he heard Arya's message over the ship-wide comm. Dr. Nguyen helped him to a viewport, where they watched as the U.S. Aegis accelerated toward the Black Maw flagship. The impact was catastrophic. The Aegis's reinforced prow tore through the Black Maw vessel's hull, triggering a chain reaction of explosions that ripped through both ships. For a moment, the darkness of space was illuminated by a brilliant flash of light, and then silence fell. The Black Maw fleet, suddenly without central coordination, fell into disarray. Some ships continued their attack runs, while others drifted aimlessly, their systems struggling to adapt to the loss of their command vessel. Seeing the opportunity, the remaining human and Zathran ships pressed their advantage, targeting the confused enemy vessels with everything they had. Within hours, the tide of battle had turned. The Black Maw forces that survived retreated into deep space, leaving behind the wreckage of their defeated fleet. The cost of victory had been high. The U.S. Aegis was completely destroyed, with Captain Arya Donovan presumed lost with her ship. Several other vessels had sustained heavy damage, and the casualty count continued to rise as reports came in from throughout the fleet. A solemn memorial service was held on the surface of Zathora to honor those who had fallen in battle. Humans and Zathora stood side by side, united in grief and gratitude for the sacrifices made to secure their freedom. Colonel Hector Pierce, now acting commander of the human forces, addressed the gathered survivors. Though still weakened from his encounter with the Overseer, he stood tall, his voice carrying across the assembly. Today we honor those who gave everything to protect the values we hold dear: courage, compassion, and the belief that all sentient beings deserve to live free from fear and oppression. Captain Arya Donovan exemplified these values, and her sacrifice will never be forgotten. Velron stepped forward, his once dim skin now glowing with renewed energy. The people of Zathora will forever remember the Deathworlders who came to our aid when all seemed lost. Your reputation may inspire fear in some, but we have seen the truth beneath it, a species of unparalleled determination and selflessness. Dr. Camille Nguyen announced that she would be staying behind with a team of human scientists and engineers to help rebuild Zathora's infrastructure and develop defenses against any future Black Maw incursions. We'll share our medical technology and defensive capabilities, she promised. Together, we'll create a stronger, more resilient Zathora. As the memorial ceremony concluded, Communications Officer Vera Kwan approached Colonel Pierce with a message from the Galactic Council. They've acknowledged our actions here, she told him. The Council expresses regret for past mistrust and extends formal recognition of humanity's role as protectors of the galactic community. Pierce nodded, accepting the message with mixed emotions. Recognition was valuable, but it couldn't bring back those who had been lost. As he prepared to return to the command vessel, now serving as the fleet's flagship, Pierce's communicator beeped with an incoming transmission. A new distress signal, originating from a star system several light years away. He stared at the coordinates, then looked up at the stars visible through Zathora's atmosphere. Without hesitation, he knew what Captain Donovan would have done. Prepare the fleet for departure, he ordered. Another world needs the strength of Deathworlders. As the remaining ships of the human fleet prepare to embark on their next mission, the legacy of their battle at Zathora spread throughout the galaxy. The Black Maw threat had been pushed back, at least temporarily, and a new chapter in human-alien relations had begun. No longer were humans merely tolerated as the aggressive Deathworlders from a harsh planet. Now, they were recognized as protectors, beings whose very hardships had forged them into defenders of those who could not defend themselves. The stars beckoned as the fleet jumped to FTL, carrying humanity's legacy of resilience to another world in need. Among the crew, stories of Captain Donovan's sacrifice had already become legend, a testament to the Deathworlder spirit that refused to surrender even in the face of overwhelming odds. In the command center of the new flagship, Colonel Pierce studied the details of the incoming distress call. The signal was different from the Zathora's, but the desperation it conveyed was just as palpable. Another species was facing extinction, another civilization on the brink. Course plotted and confirmed, Colonel, reported the navigation officer. Estimated arrival in 6 days. Pierce nodded, feeling the weight of command settle onto his shoulders. Captain Donovan had set a high standard, one he was determined to uphold. Dr. Nguyen, he called over the comm link to the science division. What do we know about this new threat? Camila's voice came through clearly. Early analysis suggests it's not the Black Maw, but something equally dangerous. The signal mentions atmosphere degradation and chronological acceleration. We're still working on the exact translation. Keep me informed, Pierce replied. I want options ready by the time we arrive. As he ended the transmission, Pierce found himself standing before the memorial wall that had been hastily erected in the ship's main corridor. Photos and nameplates honored those lost in the Battle of Zathora, with Captain Arya Donovan's image at the center. He raised his hand in a solemn salute. We'll make you proud, Captain. Communications Officer Vera Kwan approached, datapad in hand. Colonel, I've received a message from Earth High Command. They've reviewed our action report from Zathora, and She paused, a rare smile crossing her face. They're commissioning a new vessel. The UES Donovan will be ready for service within a year. Pierce felt a surge of emotion, but maintained his composure. She would have found that amusing. Never wanted recognition. But she earned it, Vera replied softly. In the medical bay, a young Marine was recovering from energy drains sustained during the battle. Dr. Camille Nguyen checked his vitals, pleased with his progress. Will I be combat ready before we reach the new system, Doctor? He asked anxiously. Camila smiled reassuringly. Your Deathworlder physiology is already compensating for the damage, but I'd recommend another day of rest before returning to full duty. The Marine nodded reluctantly. I just don't want to miss anything. My sister served on the Aegis. I need to be there when we face the next threat. Camila placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Captain Donovan would want you at your best. Rest now, fight later. Throughout the ship, humans prepared for their next mission. Engineers modified weapons based on lessons learned against the Black Maw. Intelligence officers analyzed the new distress signal for clues about what awaited them. Marines trained relentlessly, pushing their Deathworlder bodies to new limits. In his private quarters, Colonel Pierce reviewed Captain Donovan's final log entries. Her last words resonated with quiet determination. We carry Earth with us wherever we go, not just its gravity and atmosphere, but its lessons. We survived a world that tried to kill us 1,000 different ways. We endured climate disasters, nuclear winters, and our own violent tendencies. But we emerged stronger, more adaptable. The galaxy may call us Deathworlders, but perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needs. Those who understand struggle, who refuse to surrender, who will always answer when the weak cry out for help. Pierce closed the log and looked out at the streaming starlight of FTL travel. The Black Maw had been defeated, but other threats would arise. And when they did, the Deathworlders would be ready. For in the vast expanse of the cosmos, where countless civilizations bloomed in gentle gardens, the harsh cradle of Earth had forged something unique. A species that did not merely survive, they thrived on adversity. And now, having conquered their own demons, they have found their true purpose among the stars. Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, as protectors, as Deathworlders who had learned that their greatest strength was not in their ability to endure pain, but in their willingness to prevent others from suffering it.